Welcome to Umbongo. This is going to be a game of AK47 People's Edition, still in playtest. So I won't give away too many mechanics, but we'll just see how a game goes. So this is part of a little campaign I've been running, which is basically a knockout between the 12 various armies to see who wins control, and there's a whole lot of background I've written for it, and named the majority of the characters. What you're looking at here is the People's Popular Front, who are defending in this game. So they're holding this, apologies about that, they're holding the outskirts of this urban area. That's a picture of one of the more popular generals, I guess, which is on their table edge. The table for new AK47 People's Edition is 5 foot by 3 and gridded. First time AK47's been gridded. So there's a militia unit with some Toyota Technicals. They're the new Peter Pig Toyota Technicals, made out of resin instead of metal. Absolutely lovely. And then as we scroll across the battlefield, we've got some a scattered farm or village here, local Poundland, and the voting station. And we've got a regular unit getting ready to take on the hordes, or not the hordes, but the professional army of the Colonial Settlers, which you can just see on the edge of the table there. So in that far piece of jungle, there's the police unit, and the general for the Colonial Settlers is in there. We'll go around that side shortly. And then we have a professional unit just on that hill with a couple of British looking tanks looking to come across and cause some mischief. So let's have a look at the battlefield as a whole. Try not to have too much shaky camera. You can see some little tokens down on the table there. They are, or I'll explain what they are shortly. They're little additions, but also there's some take cover markers. So that means these troops here are hitting the dirt and sort of digging in and making best use of the cover available. There certainly can be some more artistic representations of take cover markers than that, but just for now and for playtesting, that's what I've been using. Alright, so that's the initial look. Let's see how this game goes. As part of a pre-game sequence, you roll for some random events. And look what we have here. This is a Sorocco, or Sorocco. So it's basically a dust cloud that's blowing through the area. And that is going to blow across the table until it leaves the opposite corner down there. Now, whoever gains the Sorocco in the pre-game random events section places it in a corner, and it basically covers 9 squares. As you can see, I could do perhaps spraying this some yellowy brown, I guess, if it's a dust storm. And at the end of each player's turn, it's going to move either down the table or across the table, dependent on an opposed dice roll. Both players rolling a dice each. The owner, which in this case is the People's Popular Front, will get a +1 to that roll. The Colonial Settlers will roll a d6. The difference, whoever wins that dice roll, they have to move it the distance in squares. Once it reaches the edge of a table, those they start to disappear. So it doesn't last forever, but it does basically cause havoc for troops underneath it. So there's no movement in or out, there's no shooting. Basically it cripples you for a while. So it's a random event. It doesn't turn up very often, but it just so happens in this game that I'm filming it does. So let's see how it works. More soon. So at the end of the Colonial Settlers' first turn, they've got professionals here on this hill who've sort of moved up from this square to here. This machine gun is with the unit, attached to the unit, slows them up because it's a little bit harder to move. But they're in a position. They did take a shot with the infantry there into that village, as did the tanks, but didn't do any damage. However, this unit down here can't do anything because they're under the Sorocco, which includes the unit of armoured cars there with the machine gun. But on the communication phase, which is a new thing in this version of AK47, the Colonial players managed to bring down an airstrike on the outskirts of this town and killed a base and also pinned this square here. And then with their second communication role, got HE, which deviates. So one was long, however 2 were on. Both managed to kill a base, as you can see by the dead body, and any kill creates a pin. So that square's pinned, that square's pinned, but I had forgotten that this regular unit's got 2 recoilless rifles with it, so that should be interesting in the next turn. So update at the end of turn 2. The militia unit that got hit by that HE managed to rally off the pin, but that's about it. They've still got the dead body, which will start to cause them a problem unless they deal with it. The Sorocco, which actually needs to move now, I need to do that. In fact, let's do that on camera as we speak. So black dice will be for the Colonial Settlers, and blue dice for the Popular Front, and they get a +1 to this, so 5. So that means it moves 1 square. So as you can see, it did move across the table. So what it's going to do now is move 1 more square, and that's going to start hitting the professional unit. So in communications, the regular unit here managed to get a result of the damned militia, which brings foot bases back. So those 2 dead that this unit suffered from the airstrike clearly weren't dead at all. They were just hiding. And you can see there I played the leader token on them, which basically means each square gets an automatic 4 action points that's not modified by anything, positive or negative. And because this square and this square were both pinned, whatever would have rolled on action points would have been reduced by 2. So it guaranteed them 4 action points, and they both managed to clear away a dead body and clear away the pin from them. And then most exciting of all, this recoilless rifle took a shot down at that British looking tank and managed to blow it up. So chalk 1 hit for the People's Popular Front, and those professionals now are starting to feel the effect of the Sorocco as it blows across the table. But what it does mean is it releases the police unit down there and those 2 armoured cars. The PPF's technicals have moved up and they're sort of sitting behind this village here, but it's going to be a fairly uneven fight if they try and take on those armoured cars. But reinforcements in the form of 2 artillery pieces have arrived. So let's see what can happen in turn 3, which is the Colonial Settlers turn. Okay, so assaulting in AK47 Reloaded was a relatively time-consuming and complex affair. Still enjoyable, but not particularly easy to get to grips with. In AK47 People's Edition, very easy. So you basically just you get 2 dice per base that's going into the assault, 1 square assaulting another, 1 or 2 bonuses. Roll the dice. If you roll 6, you get a kill. Target unit, the target unit, which is the regular unit here in the village, get to re-roll their dice, and then any 6s are kills. And then the attacker similarly adds up their dice, rolls them, and gets to re-roll all or none of them, and 6s are kills. So the regular unit, unfortunately, only got 1 kill. So one of these bases, no saves here, one of these bases of professionals, these 4 professional bases here under Bico, is dead. However, when the professionals rolled their dice, there you can see the misses. But look at all these 6s, 6 kills, and there's only 5 bases in the square. So that is a pretty emphatic win for the professional unit. So the end of turn 3, it's a bit of a disaster for the regular unit in this village. I'm around the other side of the table now. As you can see, the professionals have made it in, and on communications managed to get back the body or the base that died. So how I like to rationalise that is that that base was just temporarily shocked or wounded or gone to ground and now it's rejoining the men. But as you can see, a lot of dead bodies from this regular unit, who's split in 2. It's only got 4 bases left. The leader's dead. They're in pretty bad shape. As you can see, the Sorocco has moved across it again, 1 square that way, and it's now covering the tanks. It's going to have to start coming this way fairly soon. There's only 3 more squares left for it to go there before it's got to come this way. In other news, the police unit in the jungle there, they rolled poorly on their dice, so could only move forward 1 square, so it's split into 2. 4 bases coming out onto the road there, and the other bases with the general move further forward in the jungle. The 2 APCs here took a shot at the Toyotas and missed. The Toyotas returned in kind and missed, and also there was some HE that landed on the town here, but didn't cause any damage, thankfully. So after 3 turns, things are very much looking in favour of the Colonial Settlers, but let's see what happens. More coming up. Okay, it's the end of turn 4, and goodness me, the Sorocco has blown right the way across the table, and probably out of any impact in the game now, but we'll see. So turn 4 was the defenders, the People's Popular Front, their turn. Let's start over here in the outskirts of this town, which is Guazzari, something like that, I can't pronounce it. The militia have held on. They haven't really done much, but this is a very valuable scenery piece. for the attackers should they get it. So the militia are going to hang on there as long as possible. The guns on the hill shot into the village of Mtoko here, which is the one where where the professionals won that combat last turn. And you'll notice the regular unit is no longer there. Well, they did fail the morale, but not as badly as it could have been. They could have dispersed. They've actually still got 3 bases left, 1, 2, and there's one in the Sorocco just over there. Any unit that falls down to 2 bases is automatically destroyed, so they've just hung on. They did try to use something called the damn militia, which encourages some of the men back, those who weren't killed and perhaps were just hiding or were in shock, but failed that role both times, unfortunately. But they're still here, and they've managed to meet up with Pedro Pig. There's a new commander in town, as Major Diop was killed in the assault. So this might be his brother, actually, because it's still Major Diop. But the original Major Diop was killed in the assault. The Colonial Settlers haven't had it all their own way. So their general, who is Colonel Reginald Jack Havsham, is still over here in the trees, in the tree line there with the police, trying to just give them some pointers on how to attack, and they've got sort of stuck in there a little bit. They haven't made much progress, which has left it to the professional unit who won the assault. But you might be able to tell there's no leader base there, and in fact he was killed by these Toyotas, who opened up with the machine guns into the town or village. It was shelled by the artillery. No casualties caused there though. So the professional unit have got a bit of a problem. They've got no leader, and they've got a dead body, and the rest of the unit is just fallen behind a little bit. Obviously they're down to 1 tank, and the armoured cars are now coming up. The countdown, we've been rolling quite low on the countdown. I think we're on something like 20, let's have a look, 26. It starts on 36, as is the way with the newer Peter Pig rules. Both players roll on the countdown and can re-roll if they don't like the result. So typically the defender will want high, so will re-roll low scores of 1s, 2s or 3s, whereas the attacker wants low to give himself plenty of time to get across the table, because his objective is the baseline here. These are very valuable squares for the attacker, certainly ones with scenery in them. So let's see how things go as we move into turn 5. Okay, that was a relatively quick turn. I haven't done countdown actually, so let's do that live on camera. So if we can get this on camera. 4. Attacker will re-roll 3. So we're down to 26. 23. Sorry. So the police finally managed to find their way out of the tree line there, and have made an advance, making sure that they've got some cover at least. Any foot troops in a square with a vehicle counts as partial cover, and these little bits of aquarium plant count as partial cover too. So gradually making their way towards the outskirts of the town. The professional unit basically consolidated their position there, and in fact, because this square didn't move this turn, they get a take cover marker, which basically, so these scattered building templates are essentially partial cover, so they give a +1 to save, and by taking cover as well in partial cover, they get +2 to save. So it becomes a bit like being in solid buildings, as well worth doing. The tank here moved up onto the hill and took a shot at the Toyotas. I didn't fancy the Toyotas' chances much, and in fact one of them succumbed to a shell from the tank. HE came in on this line here and managed to destroy one of the field pieces. There's my pointing stick. Field pieces here, which pins it. I'm not sure if guns can be pinned, I'll have to check on that. And then also landed on top of Pedro Pig, who's the People's Popular Front. Okay, it's the end of turn 6, the defender's turn. Defenders take even numbered turns and the attackers odd. So both sides have had 3 turns each. You'll see the Sorocco has started to move off table. So pretty soon that's going to become irrelevant. This unit of regulars, now that Major Diop II has joined up with Pedro Pig, passed their morale test, and in fact have now through the communications table managed to reduce their casualties. There's a specific result on the communications table which allows you to remove a single casualty wherever it is on the table. So I guess that they've crawled away to safety. They were just wounded and they've crawled away to safety, and word has got back to to the company that those men are safe. This lone base here was under the Sorocco. It now isn't. However, it did try and return or get closer back to its company HQ, but remains stuck there. Hasn't quite managed to find the route, but it is relatively safe. Can't be seen in that scenery piece because it's what's called a gully or a depression. A lovely template there from S&A Scenics, and they're now taking cover as well, so they don't really need it because they can't be seen unless another base is in that same template. They can't see out as well, so they can't shoot. In the middle there, we can see that the Toyota Technical left its burning mate there, having been shot by the tank on the hill, and started to pour some fire into the police unit here. Managed to score a casualty. The the police did manage to shoot back with RPGs but missed, so he's still alive. And then in a genius move by Pedro Pig, he issued the militia unit in the town with this bonus, leadership bonus, which means that everybody gets 4 action points regardless of quality. No need to roll, etc, etc. 4 action points means that each square can shoot twice. They did shoot twice and did some damage, causing 3 casualties there. We'll see what the police unit can do about that. They're going to have a morale test. They do have their own general in the square, or officer commanding, and it was hit by HE as well, but with no effect, so those markers can come off shortly. The People's Popular Front did really want to try and get their reinforcement unit on, but failed. So we are where we are at the moment. One was HE and one was removal of one of those casualties in the village. So it's the attacker's turn. Countdown is on 19. So let's see what comes next. Okay, the end of turn 8 of this battle of AK47 People's Edition. So the professionals here are ensconced now in the town, village, sorry, and as you can see, the regular unit there that were with Pedro Pig have been shot off the table, which means our lone survivor here has fled as well. As you can see, the Sorocco is nearly off table, just those last 3 squares now, so that's blown over. The tank didn't have a shot, but it did manage to maneuver off this hill, which is a rough hill, so it's rough terrain for the tank, which means it moves very slowly, but it is off and in open ground now. That field gun isn't going to be too much of a problem for it. I wouldn't have thought, but you never know. Then over here, the police unit have managed to rally, and they've got managed to look after all the dead. But they are a little bit vulnerable now because this Toyota is still here and is going to be shooting at short range at these police very shortly. Again, the communication rolls have let us down. We couldn't get reinforcements on, which we wanted. We wanted the second unit of professionals to arrive, which will make a big difference for the Colonial Settlers army. What we did get, though, was in communications was 2 rounds of HE, which stomped this village here, killing the leader, Mr. Hyde. So there's no leader and 2 casualties, which means that that's going to be a morale test for the defenders at the start of their next turn, which is now, basically. So let's see how we go. These are the only foot troops that the defenders got left on the table. The regular unit's now gone, as I've said, and they do have some militia in reserve who are arriving in vehicles, which means that they're a lot easier to arrive in reinforcements if they get the right number on the communications table. So hopefully their comms will get sorted. Let's have a little bit of a general view of the battlefield. Here we go. So the aim for the attacking colonial force, where's my finger, there it is really to take any of these scenery pieces, but really any scenery piece that they take is worth victory points. It's just that the further over the table those scenery pieces are, the more they're worth. And similarly for the defender as well, but at the moment that's the least of his worries because he's really boxed up in the outskirts of the town here, with no sign of reinforcements, and Pedro Pig is on his own on the hill, got this lone gun. So let's just see what comes in the next turn. That was a quick turn, because, well, basically there's not many defenders on the table, or at least there weren't. More of that in a second. So the militia, with no leader at the time, led to Pedro Pig here. There we go, Pedro Pig, trying to make a run over to help them out, but just fell short. He's in the open, but generals can't be targeted if they're on their own in the open, which is wise, I think. I mean, one or two men running around, probably in a jeep actually, wouldn't be a high priority. Nobody would know he's the general. Anyway, so he's safe there, but he fell short. So the action point rolls for both of these two militia squares was very poor. It was only a 1 and a 2, and they lose 1 anyway, because they're militia to a minimum of 1. But this square used their 1 point wisely to roll for a new leader, and Mr. Hyde's brother, Mr. Hyde, decided to take up the baton, or the AK47, and become the leader. This square used its point to have a shot down here at the general, but missed, and the return fire was useless. Moving over to the Toyota, who decided to bug out because he's got a tank coming up his rear. He doesn't really fancy going to toe with that, so he did have a shot at the police here, but it was an abysmal shot and missed, as was the 1 shot from the remaining field gun, who had a shot at the police and also missed. So that was that. And then on communications, reinforcements arrived via those truck-borne militia. So one of their 3 arrival zones are the centre 2 squares on that flank, the centre 2 squares on that flank, and the centre 2 squares on their baseline here, which is where the guns came on. So they put pedal to the floor in those trucks and zoomed off. There's a lovely little neat mechanic for how trucks move in this, or transports. There is an armoured transport variant, possibility, but these are unarmoured transports, so soft skin trucks, which will die to a slight breeze, I would suggest. But the militia have managed to get out of it. They got to where they wanted. They're now in rough ground, and I've just realised, well, actually, these will count as impartial cover because of the truck. And at the moment, nothing, as well, these guys are in the open at the moment in that rough ground, but we'll see what comes of that. So a quick turn, but the countdown moved on by 6 points, so we're down to 11. This is going to be turn 9 coming up. Probably going to be one of the longer AK games I've played, actually, of People's Edition. But let's see what a difference the arrival of these reinforcements make, and whether or not the militia here can hang on. I think one thing you'll notice with AK47 People's Edition is speed of play. It really, with 2 players who know what they're doing, under 2 hours is almost a certainty for a game, and probably closer to an hour, I would suggest. I've I got through that turn there, which is turn 9, very quickly again. So just to update, the police unit were contemplating assaulting here, but with the damn militia result on communication giving bases back to this unit, so it's practically at full strength, back to 9 bases. It's a really tough ask, even though they are militia, and the police are a regular unit, so would have a bonus. Assaulting into buildings is a really tough ask, and I think probably best left alone. You can see the poor Toyota there, goodness me, that looks gruesome, was popped off by the tank. Good shooting. The police have moved into the village there, and likely will try and spread out and get closer actually to where the professional unit is. So some bases there, and then in an aggressive move, some moved out here into this partial cover to shoot at the newly arrived militia, and had some success. Killed one base there. Communications again let the Colonials down. They can't seem to get that reinforcement unit on. They're clearly lost in the bush somewhere, and brought in. They got a damned militia result, which meant that 2 bases of the regular police unit could come back, having healed their wounds. And the other was HE, which unfortunately has accounted for 2 of the trucks and also killed one of the bases of militia. So already the militia, as you can see, are up against it and suffering. But the attacker rolled a 1 on countdown and has chosen to stick with it, because all of the defender's army are on the table. It's only 2 militia units. Both Toyotas are now bust. They've got this gun, but really it's no threat to the tank. So for gaining ground, they need a little bit more time to try and get those reinforcements on. Even if they come in on in the last turn, that will be useful. So they took the 1, and we're down to 10 on the countdown, and in fact it's turn 10. Okay, a bit of an effort at consolidation then by the defender. There was a contemplation for these militia to try and make a run for that jungle down there. But those armoured APCs there with machine guns would probably cause some mischief with them. So they didn't. They may regret that. However, the other militia unit had a better turn in that, although they didn't cause any casualties and they rolled terribly on action points, so much so that this square decided to stay where it was and take advantage of the take cover. So clearly hiding underneath that truck. The square with the leader in only rolled 1 action point after a re-roll. Actually, I think they rolled 2, but they have to take 1 off because of the militia. So I've just moved across to hide behind this burning tank. But the troops who were there rolled 5 and have made a sprint across onto this rough hill where there is a bit of cover, and they'll be able to claim some kudos and victory points, in fact, for the People's Popular Front. Also, they got a result of damn militia on communications. Damn militia brings back bases that were dead. Doesn't get rid of the dead bodies, but brings back bases that were dead, and assumes that they were just cowering or temporarily out of action. So this unit is actually back up to full strength of 10 bases, which is very useful for militia. The gun did have a pop at the tank, but missed. The tank shot back and missed. So that's where we are. They rolled 5 on countdown and have taken it, so we are down to 5 on countdown, and it's turn 11, and the attackers are about to see what they could do. This could be the last turn. Okay, because it's last turn, I thought, why not just, or maybe the last turn, I thought, why not just go through this turn sequence in full. So here we can see the turn sequence on the play sheet, which will be, if not already, available for free on the Peter Big website. So the first section of the turn sequence, why can't I find the words, is events. So that's Sorocco arrival, so that would be right at the start of the turn. Fire attempt, so another event or random event that can happen is buildings can set on fire, or helicopters can arrive. Now that can happen at any point of the owner's choosing, but if they do arrive, they arrive at this point in the turn, they move and shoot, and you roll for their duration, which is how long the helicopter stays on the table, which basically starts at 12 points, and once it's finished its activation, you roll a d6, take that away from 12 when each turn, and when that reaches 0, the helicopter bugs out. Okay, so place bonuses. We're not going to place any bonuses. We've got a morale bonus and a fighting bonus, and we don't intend to have any fights, and there's no morale problems for the Colonial Settlers. The general is here. He's quite happy there. That is, I've mentioned him before. His name is Colonel Reginald Jack Havsham. My AK47 games are nominally set in 1976. Not sure why I chose 1976, but there you go. I think it just keeps it far enough away from modern political events. I think the rules actually cover up to 1990, so anybody with delicate sensibilities, I think, can justify playing the game as it is intended to be played as a fun game, not political in any way. So General Havsham is staying there with the police. He's obviously with the local police commander, Superintendent White. Trampling over this poor fellow's garden here. That's a very poor show. There is no morale for the Colonial Settlers, so we go straight into unit by unit motivation. So I think what we'll do is because we're looking at them, let's start with the police. Okay, so what we're going to do is roll for the action points. So we roll for, the leader here can motivate up to 3 squares. They're only in 2 squares, so what we do is put a dice down in each square, and we'll roll the leader's square first. He rolls a d6 with a re-roll, and because the officer commanding is there, this gets a +1 to it. So I've rolled a 4. Don't really want to re-roll that, and we get a +1, so they get 5 action points. Now this one, because it's next to the leader's square, rolls the dice and takes it as it lands, and that's a 4 as well. And because the general or officer commanding is with the unit, they get a 5. So we determine action points for all squares that are to be motivated at the same time, and then choose which square we wish to activate. Now then, you might just be able to see that those militia here came up onto this rough hill. They're in some soft cover, but range in AK47 People's Edition is 3 squares, so we count 1, 2, so it's well within range. The police are rather crowded in that square, so they might suffer a little bit in the return fire, but they get the shot first, and there's 4 bases. Now the first shot costs 1 point. which will take them down to 4. And the second shot costs 3 points, so it's more difficult to get. Slight interruption there, sorry about that. So yeah, so they get 2 shots each then, basically. So that first shot took them down to 4 points from 5. The second shot costs 3 points, which is going to take them down to 1 action point, which they could use after this if they wished. This piece of scenery is only partial cover, it's not difficult terrain, so it does only cost 1 point to leave, but whether they want to leave or not, I don't know. Anyway, there's 4 bases that can shoot, so that's 4 dice, and they're shooting twice at those chaps over there. So we're going to roll 8 dice and we're going to look for 5s and 6s. Now if that had more than 3 bases, so between 4 and 7 bases in it, I would get a re-roll. If there was 8 bases in it, which can happen, then I would get a re-roll and also hit on a 4, 5 or 6, so it'd be really deadly. But anyway, there's no re-roll on this, so let's have a look what we've got. And that's pretty terrible rolling, but anybody who knows me knows that my rolling isn't great, so it's 1 hit. Okay, so poor shooting there by the policeman. And the militia are going to save on, so we start on a 4, every save starts on a 4. See if we can stabilize that camera, there we go. Saves on a 4, and because they're in partial cover, this little bit of greenery here indicates that there's a little bit of cover there and that rough hill for them. That improves by 1, so they're going to save on a 3 up. It's very difficult to roll a dice where the camera can see it, but I've rolled a 1 there, so that means we have a dead body. So 1 base comes off using yellow casualties for that unit. Now that unit can shoot back, dependent on the quality as how many bases can shoot back. So 3 militia bases, 4 regular, 5 professional. They are militia. There's only 2 bases, but they can shoot back, but they only hit on 6s because they're shooting back, but they've got 1, which is good. And similarly, this only counts as partial cover. These buildings are only little tin shacks, so we're going to save on a 3, and we get a 3, so that's good. They've got 1 point left, but I don't think they're going to do anything with that, so I'll leave that there. Now then, this square, well, it can't, sorry, this square can't see over this hill here. This hill's touching up to here, and centre from there to the centre of there crosses this hill, so it can't be seen. They've got 5 points. Again, this could be the last turn, but there's no real point in moving, I don't think. Well, actually, going on to here would be beneficial in game terms. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Go back here. I'm going to put 2 bases there, and then the general and him, I'm going to move that. It's a bit risky. It is risky, but in fact, he'll have to go with him as well, the leader. The leader has to stick with the general at all times. In my collection, generals have got these pink bases, and most leaders have got yellow, but for some reason, Superintendent White's got a blue tag on the back. So that's how that unit activates. Let's go with the armoured cars. Now, these come in pairs, and whilst there's still 2 for action points, they get to re-roll. So they've rolled a 3. Need 4 points to have 2 shots, so we will re-roll on the hope that we can get lucky, and what you know, we roll another 3. So all they're going to do is take pot shot into this town here. There we go. So those armour cars or APCs, I'm assuming that they've got some machine guns on top, just for the purposes of the game. Now, machine guns shooting at infantry shoot with 3 dice. So it's 3 dice per vehicle. Again, we're looking at 5s and 6s. So in paid for shooting, it's 5s and 6s. In reaction shooting or provoke shooting, it's 6s. And we've got 3 there. We could re-roll that because in the town we have actually there's 6 bases in there, so we could re-roll that, but I think a 50% result on a 33% chance of hitting is good. So we'll take 3. Now then, unfortunately for the Colonial chaps, these are solid buildings and we're at some distance away, so we can't play in proximity range or short range. So they're going to save on anything but a 1. We do have general in there, but we're not going to put a hit on the general. We're going to put hits on the 3 regular chaps, and they're going to save on anything but a 1. Well, there's 1, 1. So that is a dead. So I'll take this chap away, and they are orange casualties. It is important that you know where your casualties, which unit your casualties belong to. So as you can see, I've put a little orange dash of them to indicate that they belong to this unit here. And finally, well, not finally, actually, we've got the tank, which I think is going to just have a shot here. So because he's on his own, his mate died a while ago, he just gets the roll of a d6 for action points. He's rolled 6, well done. 4 points means he can have 2 shots, and tank shooting at artillery is 2 dice per shot. So we're going to roll 4 dice, and again looking for 5s and 6s. What have we got? We got a hit. Very good. Now, the gun here benefits from a take cover marker. So it's an open square, there's no cover in it. There is partial scenery next to it, but that doesn't count. So he's on this open gentle hill, but he's taking cover, which is very wise. Which means he's going to, it would be a save of 4, but because, where are we? Would be a save of 4, but because he's taking cover, making best use of the folds in the ground and what have you, he's going to save on a 3. So let's see if the gun can save, and it doesn't. That means, unfortunately, the gun is destroyed. You can see the dead gun next to it there. And that's good shooting from that tank. It's had a very good game, that tank has. Okay, so lastly for the Colonial Settlers is the professional unit, who are here and here. Let's see what they get for action points. So because they're professionals, they get a +1 to the dice roll, and always start with the leader's square. So we'll put the dice down. Actually, let's show you properly. So each square there, only in 2 squares, so I'll put a dice down. Going to roll. Because the leader's in the square, we can re-roll that, and there you go, that's better. So that 1 goes up to a 2 because they're professional. And this one now, because it's further away, the opponent can get to re-roll. So because I'm playing on my own, any roll of 4 or more we will re-roll. That's a 5. Re-roll to a 1, that's better. But again, +1 because they're professional goes up to a 2. So what I think will happen here is to get the tactical advantage, rather than shooting this square, could shoot down here, those militia in the rough ground. there's little to be gained there, I think. So what we'll do is, to gain some tactical advantage, these troops are going to go 1 and 2 and take this hill now, which is the one where the gun was. Machine guns, because they're difficult to pack up and move around, cost 2 points per square to move, so they can only move 1 square. In fact, they might as well sit there and have a shot. They're in some cover, so they're going to open up with their machine gun down at the militia. So 3 dice for machine guns. Let's see what they get, and that is 1 hit. They're in soft cover, so saving on a 3, they roll a 6, so no effect there. The unit's a bit split up at the moment, but I think what we can do is use the 2 points for this squad here to go 1, 2 to come out, and then retain some unit coherency. Not that that's massively important at this stage of the game, but it's unlikely that these are now going to be bothered. If there is another turn, it might be that they decide to run over onto that hill, but I'm hoping in the communication phase, which is next, I'm hoping that the reinforcements arrive just in time for the end of the game. So we're into communications now, and this is the communications chart. Now, this is a really clever mechanism. It's probably one of the unique aspects of this game that you won't find in many other games. So at the start of the game, you determine the communication level for your particular army, and some armies get bonuses to this. And if you've got regulars or professionals in your army, or light armour, which is very good for scouting, obviously, or you're the attacker, you get bonuses to your communications level. The communications level for this Colonial Settlers army is 8, which is the maximum it can be. Now, on 8, they can probably get pretty much whatever they want here if they're careful on this chart. So you can see the chart runs from 1 through to 12. They're going to roll on this twice, and they've got 8 points to spend on each roll. Not for both rolls, it's each roll. So they can choose to put between 0 and 8 points into communications, and then roll a d6, add that to whatever they've put on, and that's the outcome that comes. So you can see that you can, so if I wanted aircraft, or an aircraft attack, I would probably go 8 in the hope that I rolled a 1, 2, 3 or a 4, or in fact a 2, 3 or a 4. If I go over 12, then nothing happens, but that would give me a real good chance of getting aircraft. Reinforcements can come on a 6, 7 or 8, so I can put as many of my 8 points towards it as I wish. The average dice roll on 1 dice is 3.5, so let's say 3, and I want a 6, 7 or 8. So if I put 3 points of my communications to this, I might be able to get the reinforcements. So we're going to add 3 onto this dice roll. I've rolled a 6. I've done this most of the game, actually. So 3 plus 6 is 9, which means we have a HE attack. So let's resolve that. So HE is always 3 squares horizontal across the table, because it's assuming artillery is coming in over the top from behind your lines rather than to the side. So you select 3 squares in a row, which I've done. So you select 3 squares in a row, which we've done there. And then for each individual square, we roll for deviation. So 1 means that the shot lands short, and 6 is over. The opponent would ordinarily roll this, but obviously it's only me. So for this first shot here, let's see what we get. We get a 6. So that lands over. Nobody else in that square, so it's going to have no effect. The middle one, 1. This is a very good demonstration. That lands short. And the other one, there's nobody there, so it doesn't really matter, but I do always like to roll. Had it have hit the square, then every base in the square is a potential hit, and the attacker or the person using the HE will then roll a d6 per base, looking for 3 4s or 3 4 5 or 6 to hit, and then it saves as normal. The difference with the airstrike is that it only hits one square, but there's no deviation on it. Everything is automatically hit, and so you go straight to the saving rolls, and it's automatically pinned. Now, I haven't done a lot of pinning in this game. Pinning is really useful prior to an assault. If in a HE stonk anything is killed, then the square is pinned automatically as well. So that's how HE works, but that one didn't really come up very well. But let's see what we can get on the second communication roll. And I think we'll add 3 to it. And we get another 6, which is more HE. That's unbelievable. I've done this practically the whole game for the Colonial Settlers, which has meant that their their third unit hasn't arrived, and probably is unlikely to arrive now. So what we're going to do is go through that same sequence again and see what we get. So this one over here, now that lands. This one in the middle, that lands, and this one could have done with that being short. It's over. There's only burning trucks in it, so that doesn't matter. So this square here has only got 2 bases in it, so 3 4 5 or 6, and they're hit. And there you go, that's my dice rolling. That's 1s and 2s. And this square is actually 4 bases, just hidden a little bit by the burning tank. So 3 4 5s or 6s, so they all do hit, and it's going to be 1 hit per base. I'm going to use a purple dice to designate the leader. So he will save on 2s, and the other 3 bases will save on 3s because the tank counts as partial colour. So the leader survives, as do 2 of the other bases, but 1 of them dies. I've just realised I've got the orientation wrong on that, because the stonk is actually coming this way towards the camera. So those 1s and 6s could have been reversed, but it didn't really impact on the outcome. So there we go, that's another casualty. That's the 2 communication rolls, and we're left to count down. Now, it might be that the Colonial Settlers would like one more turn, but for the purposes of this video, I'll stop the full turn recording after this, but we'll just roll to see what the countdown gives us. So 4, we'll re-roll, and it's a 6, so it is the end of the game. I re-rolled there because a 4 would have guaranteed the defender the last turn, because we'd be down to 1. Obviously you can't roll lower than 1. I was hoping to roll a 1 or a 2, and then if the People's Popular Front had rolled a 1 or a 2, the Colonial Settlers would have got another turn. So it was a bit of a gamble, but in any case, that is the end of the game, because the countdown is down to 0, so it's over to totting up the points. Okay, so we now need to work out who has actually won this game. So it goes on scenery held, deaths, and 1 or 2 other little bits and pieces. So actually, I think this is going to be closer than I thought it was going to be. So the attacker has got 16 scenery points to 11 for the defender. Mainly because these two squares here are held by militia, and there's militia in this square with the tank, which can claim, so basically you claim all the scenery pieces behind it, or sorry, you claim from the square where the furthest forward scenery piece is. So for instance, in this square here, there's 2 bases, which is what you need to claim. So it can claim that scenery piece all the way back to the line here, so that's going to be 5 points. Here they can only claim from this square here, because this is a scenery piece, and that is 1, 2, 3 squares in. However, these enemy bases would normally interdict and take 2 points off, but they aren't in scenery themselves. Here, these 2 bases are in scenery, so that means they take 2 points off here. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, but -2 because there's bases on this piece of scenery, so the defender claimed 3 points for that. Here they claim 1, 2, 3 and claim all 3 points because these bases aren't in scenery. Similarly here, we're in this rough ground, so we claim 1, 2, 3, 4, and that one single machine gun isn't in scenery in any case, it's only 1 base, so they claim 4 points for that. Now the attacker did slightly better in this regard, but only slightly better, because these here claim 6 points -2 because these bases interdict because they're in scenery. They claim this hill and backwards for 3 points, and then although they're in 2 squares here, you only can't count the furthest forward square, so 1, 2, 3 for there. So it wasn't all that brilliant. Oh yes, sorry. These here claim from this scenery piece backwards, and because those bases aren't in scenery, they don't interdict, so we claim all 5 points for that. So what that all adds up to is that the attacker has 16 scenery points to the defender's 11, and there's a little table that tells you what that means. So you take 11 away from 16 leaves 5, which means that the attacker gets 2d6 victory points. And then we move on to kills. So the regular unit for the defender that was in this village here was destroyed and ran off, so we claim the points for all the bases that were killed there. Claim points also for the unit destroyed, but actually all those militia bases that died pretty much came back through damn militia. So this unit was on 9 bases, and this unit over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So militia aren't worth as much, so actually the attacker gained nothing for that. So it ends up with 6d6 plus 2 for victory points. The defender gained some points because it killed a tank and 1 professional base, which add up together, and there were some points. I only killed 2 of the police bases in the end because some of those came back, so it gets no points for that. It does get quite a bit of compensation because the defender's communication level was 4 points below the attackers, and you get +2 points per point below, so that's 8 points. So the attacker gets 1d6 plus 8. Now this can be re-rolled. I think ordinarily you'd roll these separately for each thing, but I don't think it makes any don't think it makes any difference. So it's 6. Let's see if we can get this in camera, shall we? 66 plus 2, and 5 of those are below 4, so we'll re-roll them. I think that's a little bit better. So that's 10, 23 plus 2 gives the attacker 25 victory points. Now the defender is going to lose this, but how badly will they lose it? So we could do a 6 really. And that's a 1, which we can re-roll and get another 1. So there you go. So it's 25 points to 9 victory for the Colonial Settlers. And they take one step closer to the capital city of Calabaya in the fictional imagination of Umbongo. Let's see who comes across their path next. So that was my game of AK47, the People's Edition. Hopefully out in the next few months or so. Just a bit of tinkering left to do, I think. So the Colonial Settlers army was certainly one that has had a recent update. Whether or not it stays like that for the final game, who knows? Martin will make that decision. There's 1 or 2 other bits of tinkering going on, but for me the rules are in a very good place at the moment. If there are going to be any changes between now and the published edition, it will just be a little bit